Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. But yes, it is time for more Jujutsu Kaisen. Surprised how fast it adapted those chapters, like we're that close to Shibuya. Oh man, oh gotta. Man, oh gotta. But let's go ahead and get started with today's chapter. Yo, peoples! Kyushu92 here, and welcome back to yet another Jujutsu Kaisen chapter reaction and review. Last we left off, it turns out that Gojo was putting Sukuna really in a bind, and it got to a point where his infinite void, his unlimited void, was actually able to affect Sukuna, but in response to the fact that Gojo was able to contend with Sukuna and his own domain expansion be able to overlap Sukuna's malevolent shrine, Sukuna then releases Maharaga, who instantly dissipates Unlimited Void, and Gojo comes to the conclusion that Maharaga has already adapted to Infinite Void. So let's begin with chapter 230 at 12:30. Inhuman Makyo Shinjuku Showdown Part 8. And all the feeds are zoning in on Maharaga. So that's Maharaga. And then we got Meimei, the Zenin secret weapon. And then Choso, it's a Shikigami that can adapt to various attacks. And Yuji, has it adapted to Unlimited Void? And we see Maharaga standing there with Sukuna standing right in front of Maharaga, his body healing from the massive hole that Gojo put in him. Satoru Gojo knows Maharaga's moves. In the fight against Yorozu, Sukuna himself bore Maharaga's adaptation, and thereby saw through construction. The can't-miss commands that negated each other across 5 domain expansions covered everything inside the domain for Gojo, and everything except himself inside the domain for Sukuna, but didn't cover can't-miss attacks with regard to him. He took the hit from Unlimited Void 5 times and bore the burden of adaptation, and what he adapted to was Unlimited Void in 0.1 seconds a moment ago. Wow. So, Sukuna actually what this basically means is that Sukuna allowed himself to be hit with Unlimited Void all these times. When we saw the Wheel of Maharaga in one of the past chapters, that was Sukuna purposefully allowing himself to be hit by Unlimited Void so he could then become resistant to Unlimited Void. He took the hit from Unlimited Void 5 times and bore the burden of adaptation, and what he adapted to was, and this is Gojo, Unlimited Void in 0.01 seconds a moment ago. Impossible. Regardless of the wheels turning, Maharaga manifested after that. Did Sukuna bear the burden of adaptation? No. What did that was Megumi's soul! As it shows Megumi in this endless ocean deep within Sukuna, and we see the Wheel of Maharaga just floating over Megumi inside this dreamscape. You look like you have something to say, as Maharaga slinks back into Sukuna's shadow. Not really. I'm just glad you're fighting so hard. Not as hard as you. To be honest, I thought a cursed technique like Unlimited Void, which only activates in a domain, would be difficult to handle, so I wanted to rid you of that move first. While not using amplification inside a domain, I used Ten Shadows technique to have Fushiguro's shoulder adaptation. As a result, I couldn't use cursed techniques aside from what was given to the domain, but it was worth it. So, Sukuna left the whole adaptation thing to Megumi on the inside of him, which allowed him to keep fighting Gojo, but also adapt to Unlimited Void at the same time without compromising himself. Sukuna, you devious little devil. As a result, I couldn't use cursed techniques aside from what was given to the domain, but it was worth it. But I bet you only had him shoulder the process of adaptation and not the results. Sukuna, Neither you nor Megami's soul have adapted to Unlimited Void. If I open my domain again, you will have to bring out Maharaga. My next attack will end this, as Gojo prepares for Unlimited Void again. You can't open your domain again. Then there's a pang as blood shoots out of Gojo's nose. Blood shoots out of Gojo's nose as he tries to use Unlimited Void. And then we have Kusakabe. What the heck? And then Yuta. Looks like I was right to be worried. By using reverse curse technique to repair a burnt out innate domain, you pushed yourself too far. See, this is what I was worried about. I was worried that as soon as we saw blood coming out of Gojo's nose, I thought, is he really pushing himself to the brink? Having all these techniques go off one after the other? And it turns out that was right. You pushed yourself too far. Curse techniques are engraved somewhere around the right prefrontal cortex. You are destroying your brain with cursed energy and healing it with reverse curse technique to reset a burnt out curse technique. And then Yuta realizes what's going on. No way, doing that even once would be too risky. The brain is like a black box system, especially when it comes to curse techniques. It isn't that easy to heal. So he almost died 4 times. And if he just did it again, that makes 5. Wow, so Gojo was almost killing himself doing that whole process of trying to reset his burnt out curse techniques. He's been destroying his own brain just so he could keep up the fight and just healing it over and over again with reverse curse technique. And then we get Shoko. I thought Gojo was used to healing his brain, but if after effects are manifesting, then Sukuna is better off for having done it less. There are limits compared to flesh and bone. Even if you open a domain, you'll either die or you won't have the precision to combat me. And Gojo's just looking at Sukuna while he's on one knee, and he's still bleeding from the nose. Next time, I'll close the domain with a barrier. You'll have nowhere to run. Then I'll dice you up and adapt to infinity as well. Goodbye, strongest sorcerer. Turns out you were lucky to be born in an era when I wasn't around. It's why you're so mediocre, as Sukuna has the wheel of Maharaga over him. Now here's the thing, I am scared to go to the next page. Domain expansion. And then Sukuna tries to use Malevolent Shrine, and Malevolent Shrine explodes behind him. What just happened? And everyone's shocked. Yuji, Yuta, Kusakabe, the lightning guy. I still can't remember this guy's name from the beginning of the Cullen game. I forget it. And all of a sudden, Sukuna's standing there, and he's bleeding from his nose and his eyes. Like he's literally bleeding from the eyes and nose. The amount of time that Unlimited Void struck Sukuna totaled less than 10 seconds. Nonetheless, just like Gojo, he took enough damage to his brain that opening a domain was impossible. Seems like it had an effect. My students are watching as it cuts to Yuji, Kinji, Inumaki, Kirara, Panda, Maki, and Yuta, and they're all smiling. My students are watching, so help me look even cooler, okay? Woo! As Sukuna can barely has enough time to react as Gojo comes in with a solid right hook and hits him in the face. Ultimate strength and the solitude it brings. I'm the one who'll teach you about... Oh wait, this is Yorozu and her words to Sukuna. Ultimate strength and the solitude it brings. I'm the one who'll teach you about love. As it shows Sukuna staring back at Gojo with a bloodied mouth. You see, this is the reason why I was kind of anxious to see what would happen. This is the reason why I was anxious to see what would happen. Hajime Kashimo. Thank you, Hajime. I knew it started with an H. But man, yo, part of me was actually getting kind of worried because as this chapter goes, okay, so let's just go over what we learned. The entire time Gojo's been using Unlimited Void against Sukuna. Sukuna has been shouldering the job of adapting to Unlimited Void using Maharaga's wheel to Megami inside of him while he's able to fight Gojo on the outside. And all those times Gojo was using Unlimited Void, Sukuna was adapting to it so Unlimited Void wouldn't work on him. Until that one moment where that 0.01 second of Unlimited Void working actually did damage to Sukuna. He just didn't know it at the time. You see, this is why Sukuna be getting messed up sometimes. At least hit by people who, at least the time we saw him get messed up is because he gets too cocky. He, like Gojo, gets cocky, but Gojo is able to fully back that up. But what we also find out is that all those times that Gojo was using Domain Expansion Unlimited Void and basically resetting his curse technique, burnt out curse techniques, he's actually been destroying the prefrontal cortex of his brain constantly in order to reset it, but he's been using reverse curse technique in order to heal it back. But even that still does damage. So basically, he's been destroying a part of his brain that should be killing him, but he's been able to survive it. So when he tries to use Domain Expansion again, blood shoots out of his nose because his body has been basically pushing itself to its limit. Literally, and this is the conclusion that Shoko comes to. All that healing with reverse curse technique at high speeds, keeping it on a full tilt, using Unlimited Void one after the other consistently without end, it has shown that it can take its toll on the one known as the strongest sorcerer of today. So that's something, and Gojo is aware of it. But as Sukuna is so prepared to use Domain Expansion on Gojo because he knows that Gojo won't be able to use Domain Expansion as he is right now, this man's own Domain Expansion explodes and he suffers the recoil because when Unlimited Void hit, when that 0.01 seconds of Unlimited Void hit Sukuna, it was enough to make it so that Sukuna couldn't even use his own Domain Expansion, causing blood to shoot out from both his eyes and his nose. So now, Gojo's laughing at the fact that the very thing that Sukuna was hoping would affect Gojo so it would allow Sukuna to dice him up, he can't even do that. And now all that's left is just fisticuffs. The bougiest of beat-em-ups. It's just, This is Gojo. Because when I was looking at that moment where Gojo was on his knee, I was about to say, I really hope nothing happens to Gojo. And my worry was unfounded because Gojo lands a solid hit on Sukuna, who fails to activate even his own Domain Expansion. This was a good chapter. He literally, because here's the thing, Sukuna's mistake is monologuing. His mistake was monologuing. Next time, I'll close the domain with a barrier. You'll have nowhere to run. Then I'll dice you up and adapt to infinity as well. Goodbye, strongest sorcerer. The moment he said that, I felt in my spirit that Sukuna is getting a little bit too high and mighty on himself, thinking that he's going to beat the strongest person in the world opposite himself. I just felt it, but I didn't want to audibly say it at the time. That's the reason why I said I'm scared to go to the next page, because I didn't want to say he's spouting all this nonsense. He's saying all goodbye, strongest sorcerer. That's what happens when a villain gets this whole moment. That's when a villain thinks that they've already won, and that's when the hero comes back and hits with a counterattack, and that's exactly what happens. Turns out you were lucky to be born in an era when I wasn't around. It's why you're so mediocre. And he's saying here's the thing. He's saying that Gojo is so mediocre. And yet Gojo's been the only person that's been able to stand up him on a regular basis. Everyone else he's either diced up or just straight up killed. Gojo's the only one who's been able to stand toe-to-toe with Sukuna. But you know, it's Sukuna. He likes to get jabs in because he sees himself as the strongest above everyone else. The King of Curses. I understand the title. It comes with that sort of arrogance, but he's arrogant to the point of not even thinking everything through. It's why you're so mediocre. Domain expansion. And the domain explodes, and then Sukuna is affected by it. Nonetheless, okay, the amount of time that Unlimited Void struck Sukuna totaled less than 10 seconds. Nonetheless, just like Gojo, he took enough damage to his brain that opening a domain was impossible. And Gojo's just laughing at him while Sukuna wipes the blood from his face. My students are watching, so help me look even cooler, okay? And then he just decks Sukuna. And Gojo's just got his eyes are wide. He's happy. He's happy. He's got that wide-eyed expression he had when he was going up against Toji. The number one enemy to enemies. Monologuing. Incredibles is such a fantastic example of enemies, of people who monologue and then meet their demise because they monologue for so long. There's other films, but Incredibles comes to mind as the big, glaring example. But this was a really good chapter. Sukuna was so sure that he was about to kill Gojo right here because Gojo actually started to suffer some after effects from his constant use of cursed energy and reverse curse technique and the effects it had on his literal brain. So I'm gonna gloat. It's not 100% secure, but I think it is, so I'm gonna gloat. And now Sukuna to mess around and found out. That you don't become known as the strongest jujutsu sorcerer of today unless you basically stand atop everyone across all earth, between heaven and earth. I alone am the exalted one. You don't become known as the strongest jujutsu sorcerer of today when Sukuna's not around. And you don't have the smarts, the power, the strength, the incredible know-how to be at the top. No one is higher than Gojo. The only person who can match, who's on the same level, who are on equal playing field with each other, because I'm not going to say the only person who can match up to Gojo, because Sukuna is strong in his own right. I'm not going to dismiss Sukuna. Sukuna is strong for a reason. But the only person who's capable of standing up against the strongest jujutsu sorcerer of today is the strongest jujutsu sorcerer in history. No one is on Gojo's level except Sukuna, and vice versa. No one's on Sukuna's level except Gojo. But you would think that Sukuna would be a lot more knowledgeable about this and even think this through. Mind you, he's been doing a lot of thinking, been using adaptation of Maharaga to adapt to Gojo's very own unlimited void. But you would think that the strongest would be smart enough to not leave things to chance and just assume that just because this person's suffering damage, I got it in the bag. That's how you get the crap beat out of you, okay? That's how that happens. The anime really made him look more of a boss than he was in the anime. You mean Toji? Yeah, the second season for Jujutsu Kaisen has been great. I haven't been doing reactions on them, I've just been enjoying them. And I gotta say, they've been good. The animation's been top-notch, and I can't wait to own that on Blu-ray. But I'm done, ladies and gentlemen. This just goes to show you that regardless of even Gojo destroying his brain to reset his burnt-out curse techniques is not enough to keep him down. Let that rest with you for a minute. Gojo is destroying his own brain so that he can keep using his own curse techniques, and he keeps healing it. And he's suffering from it, but it's like having a meter that's at 110%. It's like having a meter that's at 110%, and then after everything that Gojo's done, it's basically at 90 right now, because it's all the stuff that Gojo's been doing. He really hasn't even lost any cursed energy. He's just been doing this over and over and over and over and over again, consistently, with no sign that his cursed energy has been dropping. You feel Sukuna's gonna turn good in the future? See, Des, you innocent summer child. I'm not gonna look. You can go ahead and shelve that idea right now. You can go ahead and shelve that idea right now. Because Sukuna is not the type of individual look, you laughing, but Sukuna, a man that literally has no problem killing people just for the heck of it, if they don't treat him with the proper respect. The same individual that tricked Yuji into a binding vow that can allow him to have complete control of his body whenever he feels like it, and then takes all of his power and force feeds it to another body that he wants to take over because it has even more powers that can go with it that he can then use. No. For what reason? For what reason would Sukuna have to turn good? Look, look, you gonna hold me to that? You gonna hold me to that? Hold me to it! Because I don't see it happening. I don't care that we got Kenjaku still out there messing around with cursed spirits and flying around in fish buses, cursed spirit fish buses like he was before. But Sukuna is not going to turn good. He's not Madara Uchiha at the end of Naruto. He's not Acnologia at the end of Fairy Tail. You're not saying like good, just saying as in he'll team up with him. I just feel there's something strong than him, unless it's him. He's the only, there's something stronger than him, unless he's the only big bad. Look, I honestly don't feel like Sukuna would team up with anyone because he sees everyone beneath him. We haven't seen the best out of Sukuna. No, we haven't, because he still hasn't used any of the shadow techniques, any of the specific Shikigami from the 10 Shadows techniques, except for Maharaga. He skipped everything that Megumi has learned, from Nue all the way to the ox and everything. The deer that has its own innate reverse curse technique abilities that can heal Sukuna. He hasn't used any of the Shikigamis except for Maharaga and Maharaga's adaptation. That's it. And seeing as how Sukuna is able to power up the 10 Shadows techniques with his own cursed energy and output, I mean, yeah, we haven't seen the absolute limits of what Sukuna can do. And I feel like we haven't seen the upper limits of what Gojo can do as well. Because you can't tell me that him being in the prison realm and he hasn't developed a brand new technique. We've seen like a 120% hollow purple, which is what he started the fight with. But we haven't seen everything that he's done. Jujutsu Kaisen is probably the new Naruto. I can't see it because there's no major talk, no jutsu. Because Naruto likes to talk everything out. What you doing is wrong. You're right. I shouldn't do it anymore. I'm going to join your side now. There's no talk, no jutsu in this series. It's like, it's either kill or be killed. Sure, there could be conversations, but they never decide the outcome of a whole fight. It's just like, we'll say our words and everything, but I'm going to body you first. You forgot about Kenjaku, wonder what he's up to? It's a very good question. He's probably keeping Tengen's body close by, because we still don't know the true end game for Kenjaku. He started the culling game, and mind you, the culling game is still going. Because the end result is for Kenjaku and Sukuna to be the only ones left at the end of the culling game so that he can bring his plan to fruition. That's the last thing he said. He wants only Sukuna and himself to be the only ones left standing at the end of the culling game. The only ones left alive. So the culling game is still going on. Kenjaku's still doing what he wants to do. We don't know where he's at because we're taking a break from that, focusing on Sukuna and Gojo. So we're still a ways off before we find out the final boss that will decide the very future of the Jujutsu world and the world of Jujutsu Kaisen as a whole. We're still a ways off, even though we're focusing on Sukuna versus Gojo right now. We're still a ways off. But I'm looking forward to the next chapter, and it says that we're not going on break. So next week, we'll be getting One Piece, My Hero Academia, and Jujutsu as well, because they'll be coming off of break because there's no new chapters of My Hero or One Piece available at this time. It is going to pop up next week. Next week is when my One Piece reading series ends. So, yeah, I'm excited for that. But I'm done, ladies and gentlemen. This was a fantastic read of Jujutsu Kaisen. I can't wait to see the next episode. I can't wait to see what happens when Sukuna realizes that he's not able to use his domain expansion simply because Unlimited Void, just for a 0.01 second, Unlimited Void basically made it so that he can't use his own domain expansion Malevolent Shrine anymore. So, yeah. And Reflections tomorrow. Yes, my read-through will be earlier in the day. My next volume read-through will be volume 72 of One Piece, which will be at 10 a.m. instead of 12. So that way, when I get done with that, I can do my One Piece reflections afterwards. We can take our time going through the 2 chapters that we got in July, and then I can just relax the rest of the day. So it's going to be a busy Monday for me, but I'm looking forward to it. I'm done, ladies and gentlemen. Every single person who is here right now, from Cdes all the way over to Ogata-san, thank you for your time. Thank you for allowing me to entertain you with my reaction to the newest chapter of Jujutsu. You do me great honor with just, being here, and I just want to say thank you. You guys don't have to be here, but I appreciate you every single time you show up. Doesn't matter how often, just you showing up is enough for me. So thank you. Hope you all enjoyed. Can't wait to see you all in my next video. And if you enjoyed what you saw here today, then please, because this helps the channel, like, subscribe, and share this video with everyone you know, because the more the merrier. And because I am always looking forward to entertaining you. So have a fantastic day. And once again, as always, later, peoples. Any new games to be played? I'm going to do a first impressions of Atlas Fallen when that releases on the 10th, but I probably won't do a series on it. Armored Core 6 is probably where my priorities are going to be for a nice long while, because that looks like it's going to be a meaty game. Afterwards, we have, in September, the first DLC pack of Pirate Warriors 4, and then later in September, the DLC expansion of Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty. So, needless to say, there's still going to be plenty for me to do in August, plenty of games I'm going to be bringing to the channel in August, and then it's September, and also in October as well, because September is going to keep me occupied, but October is going to be something else. But I'm done. Later, peoples.